Let's talk about the spread that built American childhoods. The sticky, nutty goodness that turned plain bread into magic, made celery edible, and somehow convinced parents that sugar-loaded paste counted as protein. Today we're revealing the 5 peanut butter disasters that have turned childhood comfort into corporate crime scenes. Plus, the 3 brands that still remember peanuts are supposed to be the main ingredient. So subscribe, grab your favorite spoon, and let's dig into the nutty truth about America's stickiest obsession. First up, the villains of the peanut butter world. Planters built their empire starting in 1906 when Italian immigrant Amedeo Obici had the revolutionary idea that peanuts could be more than just ballpark snacks. By 1916, they'd created Mr. Peanut, the dapper legume with a monocle, who became one of America's most recognizable food mascots. For over a century, that little guy in the top hat represented nut expertise and quality that families could trust. The brand dominated the nut industry by actually understanding peanuts, creating everything from cocktail nuts to peanut oil with genuine craftsmanship. When Planters finally entered the peanut butter game, customers expected the same quality that made their nuts legendary. After all, who knows peanuts better than the Mr. Peanut people? Planters peanut butter is a masterclass in how to destroy a century of nut credibility in a single product. Despite having access to premium peanuts and decades of nut processing expertise, they somehow created peanut butter that tastes like sweetened paste with a vague peanut memory. The texture is artificially smooth and overly processed, lacking the natural grittiness that comes from properly ground peanuts. Customer reviews consistently describe it as too sweet and artificial tasting, with many noting that it doesn't taste like the quality peanuts Planters is famous for. What's particularly insulting is how far this has fallen from what peanut butter should be. Modern Planters peanut butter contains more sugar per serving than some candy bars, with high fructose corn syrup and molasses, turning what should be a protein-rich spread into dessert masquerading as nutrition. The hydrogenated oils create that unnaturally smooth texture that never separates, but they also create trans fats that your arteries definitely don't appreciate. The stabilizers and emulsifiers bind everything together so tightly that it barely resembles ground peanuts. It's more like peanut-flavored pudding that's been engineered to stick to your mouth for maximum sweetness impact. The real insult is the pricing. Planters charges premium prices based on their nut expertise, while delivering peanut butter that would be embarrassing coming from a generic brand. They're literally trading Mr. Peanut's monocle for fool's gold. Planters was exploiting over a century of nut expertise to sell customers artificially sweetened peanut paste, proving that even the most trusted nut company in America can't resist turning their signature ingredient into processed disappointment when there's money to be made. Peter Pan launched in 1928 during the Great Depression, when E.K. Pond Company had the brilliant idea to name their peanut butter after a boy who never grew up. Honestly, pretty fitting for a product that keeps adults eating like children well into their 40s. The whimsical branding suggested magical nutrition that could help kids grow strong. The brand became a wartime hero during World War II when meat was scarce and families needed cheap protein. Peter Pan's smooth, sweet formula was basically candy that parents could feel good about serving, which explains why an entire generation grew up thinking vegetables needed to be hidden under peanut butter to be edible. But unfortunately for Peter Pan, their Sylvester, Georgia facility became a salmonella breeding ground that would make a medieval plague look organized. The 2006 to 2007 outbreak sickened 425 people across 44 states because ConAgra apparently thought basic facility maintenance was optional. The FDA found a leaking roof dripping moisture directly onto peanut processing equipment because nothing says quality control like letting Georgia rainwater season your peanut butter. The sugar silo was storm damaged, but hey, why fix it when you can just keep making contaminated spread for America's children? My personal favorite detail, the roasters were so old they couldn't heat peanuts evenly, creating perfect little bacteria vacation spots throughout each batch. ConAgra knew about all of this and kept the production lines running because apparently shareholder profits matter more than not poisoning toddlers. Even without the salmonella, Peter Pan peanut butter has devolved into a sugar delivery system that happens to contain some peanut byproducts. The ingredient list reads like a candy recipe: roasted peanuts, sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oil, salt, and molasses. That's right, they add molasses on top of sugar to make sure your protein spread is sweet enough to compete with actual desserts. The hydrogenated oils create that artificially smooth texture that never requires stirring, but they also create a waxy mouthfeel that coats your tongue like edible plastic. The excessive sweetness completely overwhelms any natural peanut flavor, creating spread that tastes more like peanut-flavored candy than anything that ever grew in the ground. Peter Pan was literally turning childhood comfort food into a game of bacterial Russian roulette, proving that some companies will happily destroy their fairy tale legacy if it means avoiding repair bills. Skippy revolutionized peanut butter in 1932 when Joseph Rosefield figured out how to stop the oil from separating, basically inventing the first peanut butter that lazy parents didn't have to stir. This was huge because apparently stirring a jar was too much work for the same generation that hand-washed everything and walked uphill both ways to school. The brand became the cool kid of peanut butter by pioneering chunky varieties and wide-mouth jars, plus they got Annette Funicello to sell it on TV. Nothing says quality spread like a Mouseketeer telling you what to eat. Fast forward to 2022, and Skippy's manufacturing had degraded so spectacularly that their machinery was literally falling apart into the peanut butter. We're talking 161,000 pounds of product contaminated with stainless steel fragments across 18 states. That's not a recall. That's evidence that someone's factory is having a complete mechanical breakdown. Customers were finding actual metal flakes in their jars, plus mysterious, strawberry-colored, plastic-like residue that sounds like something you'd find at a crime scene, not in your kid's lunch. The fact that parents had to visually inspect peanut butter for industrial debris tells you everything about modern food safety standards. This wasn't just the regular Skippy getting contaminated. The metal fragments made it into reduced fat, plant protein, creamy, and chunky varieties. When your quality control is so bad that machinery debris becomes a universal ingredient, maybe it's time to find a new line of work. The metal contamination is just the cherry on top of what Skippy has become, a sugar-bombed paste that barely qualifies as peanut butter. Modern Skippy contains the modern recipe: sugar, hydrogenated vegetable oil, and enough stabilizers to maintain that unnaturally smooth consistency that never separates or spoils. The sugar content is so high that it tastes more like peanut-flavored frosting than actual ground nuts. The excessive processing strips away most of the natural peanut flavor, leaving behind a sweet, artificial taste that requires chemical enhancement to remind you that peanuts were theoretically involved in the manufacturing process. Skippy was trading on 90 years of innovation to sell families peanut butter that doubled as a hardware store, proving that corporate cost-cutting can turn your breakfast spread into a choking hazard with a side of nostalgia. Walmart's great value peanut butter exists because someone at corporate headquarters decided that families struggling to afford groceries should still be able to give their kids peanut butter sandwiches. Noble goal, questionable execution, classic Walmart. At under $3 per jar, it's the peanut butter equivalent of a participation trophy. Technically peanut butter, definitely affordable, probably won't kill you immediately. It serves the important function of making protein accessible to families who can't drop $8 on artisanal nut spreads made by bearded hipsters in Brooklyn. Great value consistently tests higher for aflatoxins, which are basically nature's way of saying maybe don't eat moldy peanuts. These carcinogenic compounds love to party in your liver over time, and they're particularly fond of children who eat peanut butter like it's a food group. The FDA allows up to 20 parts per billion of these toxins, which sounds scientific until you realize that European countries with actual food safety standards wouldn't let this stuff cross their borders. So basically, American kids are getting peanut butter that would be considered contaminated in places where they care about not slowly poisoning their population. The high aflatoxin levels come from using bargain basement peanuts stored in conditions that would make a mushroom farmer jealous. It's technically legal, but so is putting sawdust in Parmesan cheese, and we all know how that turned out. Beyond the mold toxins, Great Value peanut butter is a textbook example of how to make peanut-flavored candy and call it protein. The ingredient list includes sugar, corn syrup solids, hydrogenated rapeseed and cottonseed oils, plus enough stabilizers and emulsifiers to create a product that never separates and barely spoils. The chemical stabilizers ensure that this peanut butter will outlast most of the actual peanuts used to make it. Great Value was exploiting families' budget constraints to sell them discount peanut butter with a side of potential liver damage, because apparently, feeding your kids shouldn't be both affordable and safe. Pick one. Jif owns 40% of the American peanut butter market, which means nearly half of all peanut butter consumed in this country comes from one facility in Lexington, Kentucky. That's either impressive efficiency or a terrifying single point of failure. Spoiler alert, it's the terrifying one. The brand became America's peanut butter king by perfecting the formula that made kids choose it over vegetables. Sugar, more sugar, and just enough peanut flavor to legally call it peanut butter. Choosy Moms Choose Jif was brilliant marketing because it made parents feel sophisticated about buying candy in a jar. Jif's mega facility received 12 separate environmental warnings for salmonella contamination before they bothered telling the public. 12. That's not an oversight. That's a deliberate decision to keep selling contaminated peanut butter while hoping nobody would die. The eventual recall hit 21 confirmed illnesses across 17 states. But the real crime is that this contaminated peanut butter didn't just go to grocery stores. It became an ingredient in granola bars, ice cream, cookies, and school cafeteria meals. One contaminated batch at the world's largest peanut butter factory contaminated the entire American food supply. Think about that. Kids who never ate Jif directly still got salmonella because their granola bar contained contaminated peanut butter. It's like a really twisted version of 6 degrees of separation. Except instead of Kevin Bacon, it's deadly bacteria, the contamination scandal overshadows what Jif has become as a food product. Essentially peanut-themed confection that happens to be spreadable. The sugar content is so high that Jif tastes more like peanut butter cookies than ground nuts. Jif was exploiting decades of maternal trust to keep their salmonella factory running at full capacity, proving that when you control nearly half the market, you can literally poison children and still maintain your choosy moms marketing with a straight face. Some companies still remember that peanut butter should taste like peanuts and won't raise your glucose level that sounds alarms. Stick around to see which brands are actually worth the sticky fingers with 3 great go-to brands of peanut butter. Trader Joe's peanut butter is what happens when a company decides that maybe, just maybe, peanut butter should actually taste like peanuts. Revolutionary concept, I know. Their creamy variety contains peanuts and salt. That's it. No sugar to make it addictive, no oils to make it shelf-stable for decades, no chemicals with names that sound like rejected Star Wars characters. The natural oil separation that freaks out people used to incorporate peanut butter is actually proof that you're eating real food. When your peanut butter doesn't separate, that means it's been chemically bonded into submission, which is great for convenience, but questionable for your digestive system. At $3 to $4 per jar, it's priced like actual food rather than a premium lifestyle product. The plain brown jar looks like it was designed by someone who spent their marketing budget on better peanuts instead of focus groups about jar aesthetics. Sometimes boring packaging is the most honest advertising you'll find. The flavor is what peanut butter tasted like before food scientists decided that everything needed to taste like candy to be successful. It's nutty, slightly salty, and dense enough that you actually feel like you ate something substantial instead of flavored air. Trader Joe's proves that when you strip away the corporate nonsense and just focus on making good peanut butter, you end up with something that tastes like food instead of a chemistry experiment that happens to be peanut flavored. Crazy Richards took the radical approach of making peanut butter with only peanuts. No salt, no sugar, no stabilizers, no ingredients you can't pronounce, just peanuts that have been ground up and put in a jar. It's so simple, it's almost insulting to other brands who apparently need 15 ingredients to accomplish the same thing. This is what peanut butter was before corporate food science decided that natural wasn't profitable enough. The oil separation isn't a bug, it's a feature. Proof that no chemical emulsifiers are holding your spread together like some kind of edible construction adhesive. The flavor is intensely nutty because there's nothing else competing for attention. No sugar masking inferior peanuts, no salt covering up staleness, just pure peanut flavor that makes you realize how much other brands have been diluting their product with filler ingredients. Yes, you have to stir it. Yes, it's more expensive. Consider this. You're paying for actual peanuts instead of subsidizing the research and development costs of making peanut-flavored candy that won't separate in your pantry for 6 months. Crazy Richards proves that sometimes the craziest thing you can do in the food industry is make a product that contains exactly what it says on the label. Nothing more, nothing less. Costco's Kirkland signature. Organic peanut butter is what happens when a company that actually cares about its members decides to make peanut butter. USDA, organic peanuts and sea salt. That's the entire ingredient list. No corporate chemistry, no profit-maximizing additives, just quality ingredients at prices that don't require a second mortgage. At $10 for two 28-ounce jars, it costs less per ounce than most conventional peanut butter while being organic. This is either Costco losing money on every jar or proof that organic food doesn't have to cost premium prices when companies aren't trying to extract maximum profit from every transaction. The organic peanuts actually taste like peanuts instead of whatever conventional peanuts taste like after being grown with pesticides and stored in questionable conditions. The sea salt enhances the nuttiness without overwhelming it, creating the perfect balance that food scientists spend millions trying to replicate with artificial ingredients. Professional chefs consistently praise this stuff, which is remarkable because chefs usually hate anything that comes from a warehouse store. When people who cook for a living are impressed by your bulk peanut butter, you're doing something right. The consistency is remarkable. Every jar tastes exactly the same, which is harder to achieve with organic ingredients than you might think. Most organic brands have batch-to-batch variation that makes every jar a surprise, but Kirkland maintains quality control that rivals industrial producers. Kirkland proves that the best peanut butter comes from companies that prioritize customer value over profit extraction, creating organic spreads that cost less than conventional alternatives, while actually tasting like the peanuts they're made from. The peanut butter aisle is where childhood nostalgia meets corporate greed. And guess which one usually wins? Your sandwich deserves better than contaminated spreads that taste like sugar-bombed science experiments. Choose the brands that remember peanuts are supposed to be the star ingredient, not supporting actors in a chemical drama. Your taste buds and your liver will thank you. Hit subscribe if you want more truth about what's really in your pantry staples. And drop a comment about which peanut butter scandal made you question everything you thought you knew about food safety. Until next time, keep spreading the good stuff and fighting the good fight against edible mediocrity.